What's up everyone, Irvine Garage here, welcome back to the channel, and in this video we're going to be doing part 5 of the Honda S2000 rebuild project. In the last video we went ahead and did the entire SRS system and no airbags blew up in my face, so I was happy about that. The whole system was restored and reset. I started the car 6 or so times since then, taking it around a little bit, and the light has not resurfaced, so I'm assuming the problem is corrected. Today we're going to be focusing on reinstalling the entire interior of the car. I know that I mutilated the roll bar covers by splitting them open instead of going through the back. It just seemed like more of a hassle, so then I'm going to work on panel bonding or epoxying the parts back together. We're going to get everything reassembled and this thing should be ready for the body shop. Alright, first things first, gotta clean up the interior. So I'm not gonna go all out and give this thing a deep cleaning. That can be a separate video because that actually gets pretty involved. I know this thing actually deserves it, but just a couple things I wanted to clear up about what I was doing yesterday. Now, I didn't really clarify this yesterday, but the SRS unit, when I was saying these don't have any grounds, basically what I was saying was that these don't have to be tightened, so I only put in the 20-pin connector. I didn't tighten everything down, as well as the seat belts and everything. If you notice, I didn't torque down any of the seat belts or the bolts on the airbags, anything like that. I'm gonna do all that to factory spec today. I want to make sure the SRS system worked before I even attempted that. So, first things first, I'm going to be installing the center console back in the car. Should be pretty self-explanatory. Let me get these two bolts in. And we'll start by extending this. I'm gonna have to plug back in the roof, and I think I'll go over the e-brake first. Should go over. There we go. So, I'm gonna have to pull the shift knob off. Alright, so just break that loose, move the shift knob, should be able to go over the nut, so I'm not too worried about that. Let's go over the e-brake, and then we'll get the roof. Okay, that should be just about everything, and then this should pop right into place. Boom. Alright, then our last part here is just going to be putting the shift knob back on. So we'll start in the right direction and we can just adjust the nut accordingly. So that's about right. So hold this in place, tighten her down, boom. Seems good. Nice and stable. Alright, so that's done, and now we're going to move on to the sides, and then before I do anything with the back portion, we need to torque down these bolts and then get all the pieces kind of aligned so that we can screw this into place, because this is actually held together by a screw, these two plastic trim pieces, and then this is going to be what gets our epoxy. Alright, so real quick before I actually jump to the back, I'm going to start by screwing down everything with this module. I said I didn't tighten the bolts down. Now, this is actually in a really hard to reach place, and I have one of these little ratcheting mini screwdrivers here. I don't know what else to call it, but I'll put a link in the description below. They're a little bit expensive, I think they're like 15 bucks or something, but it makes it a lot easier to get into a hard to reach place like this. You obviously can't fit a screwdriver in there. A ratchet may not fit. I don't think the one I had or the one I was using actually fit, but instead of using a tool like this, obviously this is only Phillips and flathead, so it's not a Torx bit. So this actually holds the bits, so it comes with these little flatheads and Phillips, and you can get all kinds of attachments, and it slides in and actually holds the bit in place, so you can actually, it works like a ratcheting wrench. So when you're actually screwing something down versus using something like this where you might be doing a 1x1, so it's a pretty cool tool. I'll put the link down in the description if you guys want to get it, but I'm going to go ahead and tighten down these bolts and then we'll move on to the back. All right, so we're ready to move on to the back portion. The cicadas are getting really bad. So I'm gonna back the car up to the garage. We're gonna mix our epoxy and start putting this together. All right, so moving on to the back, basically it's pretty straightforward. I just have to feed the seat belt through this hole you see right here. And then we're going to be test fitting this before I actually use any of the epoxy or anything. I have to move it in here. And then once everything looks good, and I can actually squeeze this together and get my clamps on and everything, we should be good to go. So I'm gonna start test fitting this and hopefully everything goes good. All right, so I really didn't give myself enough epoxy. Got the clamps on it right now, so we're gonna see if it's going to hold. I'm not sure if it will. Obviously on the next one I'm going to give myself plenty. I just did not mix enough in the beginning. I think that it should hold after 10 or 15 minutes. We're going to let and see what happens. I definitely should have put some down here, and I know exactly where I'm going to put it for the next one. So I'm going to remove these clamps in 10 or so minutes, and then we'll see if everything holds. If not, I'm just going to have to redo that side again, and then I'll hop over here. All right, let me pull these off, see if they're held. All right, well, it's definitely partially there. It's moving a little bit. I can see where the actual epoxy is, so I might want to clean that up a little bit. But everything else seems to be where it should be. Oh my God, there's so many bugs in here. But everything seems to look good, so I might just put a little dab here and add a clamp, but I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll get everything else buttoned up. All right, so I'm gonna let that sit and let it dry and everything, and then I'm gonna come back to this part in 15 minutes. I'll let that one dry, and it looks like it's coming in. It's not too good with the gap right in the center, right where this piece is, but everything else looks pretty good. Obviously, you have to touch up the epoxy and clean out the ruts and everything of all the excess, but next I'm going to work on installing the side trims, which these should just pop into place, and then we can move on to the back place once we know that these are exactly where they need to be. All right, so these should be pretty simple. Should just snap right into place. If I can get it. Oh, the other piece has to go over first. So this is that's the passenger side because it does not have the fuel door. There we go. The driver's side. So that should go right here. The guide on the side. Make sure that snaps in correctly. Oops. There we go. There we go. Boom. Nice and snug. Make sure all that lines up properly. That's good. Looks like it's snapped in with the other piece. Now, as for this, it should just snap right into place. There we go. Boom. These are just trims. Make sure all that snaps into place. All right, so I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, and then we'll work on assembling the back. All right, so the car is completely done. These actually turned out not so bad. Let me see if I can get this to focus. All right, camera's completely dead. Car is completely back together. Everything looks good. So just a few odds and ends I have to fix, but that's gonna be it for this one. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. Consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.